I want to welcome you. I'm Jean Peterson. I'm the president of the Canadian Society of Painters and Watercolor. And I'd like to thank you for signing up and being a part of our first Canadian Society of Painter and Watercolor online discussion panel. And I would also like to thank Poppy Balzer and Sherry Blokop and their education committee for putting together such fine programming. We've already had 2 evenings of watercolor. I think Bill was the last one to do a demo about a week or 2 ago, and they've been very well received. They will also be putting together some more programming for the spring, so stay tuned and make sure that you sign up for the upcoming programs, educational programs with the Watercolor Society. I'd also like to thank our panel. We have a really terrific panel of artists today to talk about plein air painting. And these 3 are some of the best plein air painters in North America, no kidding. So we have Chris Gorey, Bill Rogers, and Poppy Balzer here to answer questions. And we will also be taking your questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box that you will see at the bottom of your Zoom area. There's a little area that says chat, and Sherry will be picking those up. And at the end, we will be asking those questions to these fine and highly esteemed artists that we have on the panel. All right, so let's get started. I have a list of questions here that I'm going to ask these folks. And the first one is, what the heck made you start painting outside? Who'd like to start? Who'd like to answer that one?
I'll start. This is Poppy.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
I started painting outside because I didn't have room in the house. Really easy answer.
That's my answer. Yeah, I'd say that's my answer too.
That's why I went first.
Yeah, no. Most of the time, started painting outside when in my early 20s, and really didn't have a studio. And everything I painted was plein air back then. That was probably close to 100% of it. Now it's about 25%. I'm getting old.
Well, Chris, you just have to look out your window and you've got a beautiful view of that nice harbor. So you could pretty well do your plein air painting from there.
Yeah. Why go outside, Jean?
That's right. So Bill, why did you start painting outside?
Well, I went to Katy University and took mathematics, the logical step to become an artist. But it was quite logical, actually. I did statistics and probability and other things, calculus. But all aside, I took a couple of art courses, and one of them was painting, and took art history, and kind of got into the idea of that the Impressionists painted outside, and that the only way to really sort of get the feeling of light was to paint outside. So I started painting outside right then in university. So I was probably 19 or 20, I guess. Yeah.
I guess that's why you guys are so good with your plein air painting, because you've been doing it for a while. I know that there's an artist in town, Bill Duma in Calgary, who says that he really likes painting in the winter the best because he likes the long shadows that you get when you do the plein air painting. So what is your favorite season to paint outside and why? Poppy.
Let's see. 2 answers. Whatever season it is, it's my favorite season. It seems like, get into summer and it's, this is the best. I'm painting outside and it's wonderful. And then by the time summer's over and the seasons change and it's fall and there's no bugs and the light's different, I'm like, oh, this is the best. And I do that all year, every year. But I'm going to steal Chris's answer again. I think winter is wonderful because the light is so different. There's the long shadows, but also there's the way that snow bounces the light everywhere and up into spaces that normally don't get light on them. So that's my favorite season, all of them, and winter.
That's a great answer. Okay, Chris, would you like to go?
Yeah, ditto.
That's it, really?
Every season presents its interest, subject matter, and problems there too, you know.
Well,
That,
there must be pros and cons to each season
well,
for,
yeah, you get bugs and wind in the summer
yeah.
and cold in the winter, you know. But no, it's like a painting outdoors. I think Bill and everybody agree with this. Is like if you're a painter, painting outdoors is like painting. It's still like painting from life. It's all about observation, and I just think you should be able to paint pretty well anything if you put your mind to it. So it doesn't matter what time of year it is. No favorites.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll echo that one. And I used to really like the fall because there were no bugs. Um, but you know, then I get like summer, in the early summer when the new greens were coming out and the blossoms, and I really liked that. And then I'd get into November and the light really changed, and I really liked that. So I started painting skies then, and I've done some pretty good stuff in my truck in the winter. That I actually took my truck when I had that Jeep. Chris will remember that Jeep I had. I took it and I drove it into a field because I could, because it was four-wheel drive. And I started painting a little farm scene, and I was right out in the middle of the field, and probably about 1.5 feet of snow. And next thing you know, there was a knock on the window, and it was the police officer wondering what I was doing, you know. And so once he saw the paint, he figured, he waved. And so every season, like Chris says, it's all about observation. And yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to pick different seasons. Isn't there a group in the United States called the Whiskey Painters? Have you heard of
Yes,
that?
you'll believe you're right, Gene. Yeah.
And they started, they
Whiskey with anything is not bad.
right, but they were using whiskey instead of water for their watercolors so that it wouldn't freeze in the winter when they were painting. And I think there's only about 100 people in this group, and it's a tough group to get into. But they are plein air painters as well. Now, this leads right into the next question with how do you cope with the elements? Because there is wind and rain and sun and bugs and snow. And so how do you cope with these types of things? Let's start with Bill.
Well, my theory on painting outside is if I'm not comfortable, I'm not going to do a very good painting. So I'm not going to sit in scorching sun and paint. I'll find a shady spot. If it's raining, I'll have an umbrella, or I've painted under the roof of a SUV before, the back hatch open, and painted from there. So it's more to me about being comfortable, have dressed properly, and have bug repellent, which I have no problem using that. And it doesn't have to be organic or any of that stuff, like DDT, whatever it is, I'm going to put it on. That's fine. I'd rather get a little bit of poisoning than infectious bug bites. It's all a question of your choice. So I guess that's how I would say, more of necessity than.
Right. I remember painting, plein air painting with you out on some peninsula, out on a road by the water.
Yeah, Panamere was called Panamere Park over near Surrey, not near Murray Harbor.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The weather was perfect. I don't even remember any bugs because you guys do get some.
No, I shushed them away though.
Yeah.
I said, she's from Alberta, leave her alone.
That's right, and they did. So, all right, Chris, how do you handle all of these elements?
All of the elements. Well, Gene, Bill answered that. I might add that, like, depending on, this is like, yeah, it's sort of like that, but a little bit of a tangent. Like if I'm painting outdoors on a very, very hot day, like you wear a hat, and all that. And this is, some artists use an umbrella. I don't. I just kind of blind myself. But what I do is I'll use like a very rough paper on a hot day, because it doesn't dry as fast, especially if you've got a hot day with wind, and you guys will probably agree with this. It can just like go and it's
Yeah.
just dry as can be. So I'll use a rough paper on a hot day, but like on a gray, foggy day, or like I've done what Bill did, open up the hatch and paint in the rain. I might use a cold press or even a smooth plate hot press finish. That's just a little tip. But
Oh, that's
the other
interesting.
stuff, he's right, you know. Yeah, no more to add to that.
Okay. Poppy.
Well, I learned something new. Thanks, Chris. So the rough paper holds more water, so it stays wet a little bit longer. Is that what you?
Yeah,
That's
that's
really
what I found in my experience.
cool.
That's why they designed it that way. That's why they make rough paper, is to do exactly that.
Well,
Most people
there
think
you
it's
go.
texture.
Well, I figured it was just for the texture so that you could apply the paint differently and get, nice raggedy marks, but it's to hold the water. So
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
See?
try it. You'll like it.
Find out. How do I deal with the elements? I find the biggest problem painting outside is the bright light on my paper. So I try very hard, and I learned this from one or the other members of this panel. I don't remember which one first, but I tilt my board up and I point my easel so that the back leg of the easel is pointed towards the sun. And that way my board is going to be in the shade. And so I'm not blinding myself looking at it, especially when I'm drawing.
That was me. I got it from Carlton Plummer.
What's that?
So that was me. I passed it along from a Carlton Plummer in the US.
He's still living, Bill?
Yeah, he
He
is.
is. He must be like close to 90, is he?
That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
2 years younger than us.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself, Bill.
That's two
Good.
added together.
Yeah. Okay. What attracts you to certain subjects when you are looking for a view to paint when you're plein air painting? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's a good question, because when you're painting outdoors, there's so much to look at. Generally, I would, it's either the subject matter itself might be interesting, building, could be the mood. Generally, I'm looking for the light, the way light hits stuff, and becomes my subject matter. A little tip though, I know a lot of people like maybe go plein air painting and they'll drive around for hours looking for the perfect composition. Well, it doesn't exist. So what you do is answer the phone. No, that's just my son calling my wife anyway. So what I do is as soon as I'm attracted to something, that's what I'm going to deal with. And when I am attracted to something, then I try to analyze it. What attracted me to this subject in the first place, and then try to come up with a visual concept to portray that subject matter, that idea, or that light. And this can be done by isolating. I think a lot of people, when they paint outdoors, they just see too much, and you've got to have a set of eyes that'll try to isolate the subject matter to the center of interest. Sometimes a viewfinder can do that. Sometimes you just know. So yeah, does that answer your question? Kind of.
Absolutely, Chris.
That's a good answer, huh, Jean?
It's a good answer. Bill, what draws you to certain subjects?
Well, I would echo Chris 100% on that. And in fact, I think we probably have all done it. Chris would agree with me there, is that we have driven around all day looking for the perfect thing.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. And came back to the very first thing that we saw and
Yeah.
painted it. And it was the best thing that we could have painted.
Yeah.
So it's usually, I'm the same way. I'm attracted to the way light and shadow. I do not paint front lit things. I have a very, very rarely. And the only time I could think of painting a front lit thing was late in the day when I had a thunderhead cloud that was turning kind of really pink. And there was enough contrast for me to make it work. But normally I'm looking for some shadow. And light and shadow, it's not all about the subject, although, I'm prone to certain subjects like horses and things like that. So I'm going to be drawn to them. Just I can't avoid it. But
So-
for the most part, it has to do with light. Yeah.
You're really good with painting horses. I believe that's what your demonstration was about. So how do you, having been around horses a lot of your life, how, when you're doing plein air painting, do you incorporate a horse into your landscape?
That's a good question. I didn't bring this for that, but horses move around constantly, same as cows, or goats, anything, people. So what I will do is I will sketch them.
Mhm.
I can sketch them really fast. I can't paint them quite as fast. So therefore, then I would incorporate my sketch into the painting.
Mhm.
Because some of the events that I'm doing, you can't use a camera. And so, but I also, I'm kind of liking the spontaneity of a sketch too. I'll use the sketch to get the information I need. But my knowledge of horses is I could probably make one up, but
Mhm, mhm. You
not
bet.
quite.
Okay, Poppy, what attracts you to your subjects?
Well, when I get to a spot to paint, usually I'll go to one particular spot thinking, okay, I'm going to go out to the point and I'm going to paint there, and I'll find something when I get there. And I don't go thinking I'm going to paint the lighthouse for sure. I might think, well, there's a lighthouse, there's the rocks, there's the water, there's that really interesting scraggly tree. And when I get there, I'll walk around for a while. I won't drive for hours, but I've done that too. I think every painter who paints outside a lot has done that, where they've spent too much time looking, and by the time they're done looking, the light's gone. Anyways, so I'll get to my spot, maybe with an idea of what I might want to paint, but I'm always open to what's there, so that when I get there and start looking around, if something else catches my interest, I might paint that instead. And what I'm looking for is something that will fit inside, inside a frame that has an interesting arrangement of light shapes and dark shapes, something that may or may not be a typical subject, but something that will be visually exciting, both to look at as the viewer and to make as a painter. So that's how I pick my subject.
I have to say, I have driven around myself with friends looking for that perfect place. And you're right, you just have to drive somewhere, get out, and be inspired by what you see and try to come up with a cool, composition. At least that's my experience. And I'm certainly not a plein air painter like these three. All righty, let's go on to the next one then. What do you look for when you're interpreting a subject into a good concept or a design? Poppy.
Well, that's sort of just a continuation of my other answer, which is perfect segue. Thank you. When I'm looking at something and trying to figure out how to paint it, what I'm trying to find is a way that I'm not putting the subject, that's the most interesting part, right in the middle of the picture. I'm trying to find things around the scene or within the scene that are going to help grab the eye of the viewer and sort of point their eye at what I want them to look at. So if I'm painting, say, a particular rock formation on the coast, I might try and use the pattern in the water to point one's eye at that particular part of the rock, or I might use cloud shapes to do the same thing. So what was the question?
What do you look for when you're interpreting the subject into a good concept or design?
Right. The other thing I look for is areas of, like I said before, large dark shapes, or like one large shape that I can sort of make the painting around, and then have smaller accent shapes. So if it's a large dark cliff, I might find a way to incorporate lighter spots. And I also look for something where I can use a variety of colors within that one shape. So like if it is a big gray cliff, I might still incorporate different shades of gray and different colors of gray in there to make it more interesting.
Did you say 50 Shades of Grey?
No, that's a different kind of video.
Sorry. I wasn't supposed to go there today. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Just many shades, but not
Many
not
shades,
that
way
many.
more than 50.
Okay. All right. Bill, what do you look for when you're interpreting your subject into a good concept or design?
Well, I'm looking for an arrangement more, I would say, of shapes and values than color. If I've got a good arrangements of lights and darks, and the darks and mids being values, that'll read as kind of a cohesive unit, but has a bit of variety in it and bit of contrast, usually around a focal point. I'm looking for a focal point. I think I'm echoing Chris on that one. I'm kind of isolating a focal point and then putting in what I need to balance that up. So I would say I'm looking for a focal point, and then I'm looking for an interesting arrangement of shapes and values to carry it out.
Cool. Okay. Chris, have you got anything to add to this?
No, ditto. The only other one thing that I might add is when you're looking outside and you're trying to isolate a certain subject matter, there is a lot of noise, peripheral noise. So I don't really have a problem with eliminating stuff that is competing with my center of interest, whether it be a house or light, the way light hits or something like that. But everything they said, yeah, I agree with. I'm easy.
Do you know? Yeah. That is really perfect for going into the next question that I have, and that is, do you eliminate natural elements to improve your painting design? So Chris, do you have anything extra to add? You just
That was
talked
my
about,
question, wasn't it, Gene? Yeah.
hey, I'm listening. I'm there for you, Chris.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, I generally don't add stuff because I can't fake it.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I can't. I might, and generally I don't. Yeah, I manipulate placement a bit. Like I'll move stuff here and there a little bit to accentuate or enhance the design and the placement of objects. And like Bill says, you're looking for interlocking shapes that go well together. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle when you're painting. When you get all the pieces together, it works. If there's a piece out of place, it doesn't. So I strongly suggest in plein air painting, any kind of painting, that good design and good draftsmanship are essential for traditional plein air painting, or any kind of painting. You have a lousy design, you still have a lousy painting, no matter how well you painted it.
Right. Okay, Poppy, what have you got to add?
I leave stuff out all the time. My husband says, artists are darn liars. And he's right. I tend not to add stuff unless it's something that I'm very familiar with, just like Chris said, because it's hard to make stuff up convincingly. I have been guilty of sticking a very small boat in the background on the horizon now and then, because it's a white triangle and you're done, you've got a boat. So, but I tend to leave stuff out more than I add it. And actually, I tend to leave more natural elements and leave out the man-made stuff. If there's telephone poles, there's some people who paint telephone poles beautifully. I'm not one of those people. So if there's a telephone pole, it's rare for me to put it in unless it's part of the story and part of what drew me to the scene. Mm-hmm. And Chris was talking about draftsmanship and design, and I see there was something coming through the chat questions, so I'll touch on that. When I'm looking at a scene, I will draw it really quickly on the size of watercolor paper that I'm going to use. I draw out the scene roughly. I don't worry about making mistakes. I don't erase, but then I paint over that in shades of gray to make a value study. And then I stop and I step back 10 feet and I look at it for a little while before I start to paint it in color, because then I'll look at it and say, holy cow, I put that telephone pole in and it's coming out of the person's head. That won't work. Or, whatever it is that I did in my initial drawing that was a compositional error, I'll catch that, or I'll realize, oh, gee, that bush in the front, that needs to go because it's blocking whatever. So that's how I figure out my design and work on it, is by doing a quick value study first. And then I redraw the scene on a fresh piece of paper, and I take a little more time, and I'm very careful with the paper, and I don't erase still, but I draw much more lightly so it doesn't mark the paper up, and I paint that in color. And then, then I've got all my scribblings out of the way on the rough piece of paper.
Good. You guys are answering these questions so well. I'm learning a lot myself.
Somebody leaked the list at us.
So the next question then goes back a little bit to what we were talking about with Bill, and that is, do you add figures, animals, or anything else into the plein air painting? So Poppy, you've just said you don't tend to add anything in, but if there is a cow or a person, are you inclined to include those in the paintings or leave them out?
It depends on how long they hold still. People will walk by and say, oh, can you put me in your picture? And I ask them, if you could hold still for 2 hours, sure, I will. Yes, absolutely. And then they sort of say, no, and they run away. But I will put people more often in the distance, because that way, if they do walk off, it's easier to put, the next person in their place, sort of thing. I don't paint a lot of scenes with animals, so it's not as likely, but if they're there and they're holding still, I'll use them for sure. And about adding stuff, I might not add something out of my head, but if there's a really nice tree over there and I'm painting this scene here, but I need a structural element, I may take that tree, keeping in mind that the lighting, over there is completely different to the lighting in front of me. So I would have to, manipulate that, and that gets a bit dicey. So
right. So you have artistic license to take an element from one place and put it where you think is going to look best for your design.
Yeah, with one caveat: if you're painting a recognizable scene that everybody in the area knows, and they look at it and say, that tree isn't there, you've changed the whole place, it's not the same anymore, you can get in trouble. So, yeah.
You have to give it a name of a far off made up place.
Maybe so, that might do it.
All right. Okay, Bill, how do you handle this? You talked about the horses a bit. People, you're very good with figures as well. So do you in plein air tend to have figures in your pieces?
I do. I'll maybe didn't initially, but because I think Chris alluded to draftsmanship, which I think is just absolutely essential. They have to be convincing. So they have to be just not stick figures added in, or some kind of a symbol of a cow, or they have to be, to me, I'm a realist, so they have to go with that. I'm not a stylized painter, so stylized things go with stylized paintings. But so mine are more, they have to be believable, so they have to be drawn correctly, and that doesn't just mean that they look like a horse or a person, that they have to be in the correct scale for where they are in the painting perspective. And so I'll use them, and that's why I use the sketchbook. I won't add stuff that's not there. I won't sort of go to a scene and say, oh, a horse would be great here, I'll put one in. That's not the way I do it. But if there are horses there, they're moving around, I might sketch a few of them quickly, because then I have something to go by. They're there anyway. And I have a feel for what of their value, their colors against the other parts of the landscape. So I'm really not lying, but I am lying in terms of that I'm moving them where I want them to be, but they have to be in the correct scale. So, and the same with figures. I paint figures from life, almost every week for about 25 years. Well, I think it's really helped me add figures to anything, because it's observation and you're going through the motion. So I can quickly sketch, and I'm constantly sketching. So take my grandson skating, I'm sketching the skaters, I'm doing that kind of stuff continually. So it's more of the exercise of it though than it is that I'm going to stick those in a painting. It's more that I'm going to have the ability when the time comes to put one in a painting. I can actually draw them in a painting fairly quickly if depending on their age. If they're maybe as old as I am, might be pretty easy. They're not moving a lot, right, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, Bill.
Let's just speak to scale. You mentioned that a couple of times. So how do you make sure that the scale of the cow or the horse or the person is correct for your composition?
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
there's a perspective to that. You know, the observation is my key to that. I'm looking at how big something is in comparison to something else.
Mhm.
So I'm sight sizing it, and relative to something else, comparing sizes. So if I see something across the field, I'll basically scale it up and say, oh, that's about twice as
Mhm.
one up here is about twice the size of that one. And where do they line up horizontally and vertically
Mhm.
and size wise? That's how I do it.
Okay, cool. Chris, do you use figures or cows or horses or any other wildlife?
Sometimes, but not too often. I can't draw horses like Bill. I'll be the first to admit it. And I will put figures in a lot of my studio work, but outdoor stuff I have. And like we were at King's Landing a couple of years ago, and that's a historical place, and there's a plein air event there, was anyway. And I was like Bill, I would sketch up a bunch of these figures, and I can do them fairly quickly because they all had period costume and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And I did introduce some of those into those paintings. Not too often, you know, not that good. Bill's good. Hack.
Oh, you're all good. This kind
You
of
draw goats very well, Chris. Now, come
Yes,
on.
I do. I can do. My daughter and son-in-law have a goat farm, so there's lots of goats there. So they got
They
turkeys now, Bill. We had a 37-pound turkey that Ryan grew.
wow.
Wow.
That's a big bird. Yeah, yeah. He brought half of it over, and he took half of it back because that's a lot of meat. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you draw that?
Not yet. I don't think he hasn't killed the rest of them yet for Christmas. But
You're gonna
I did
draw
the goats.
water.
I've done the goats. I've done the cows. It's got 2 cows and 2 horses. You should come up and do the horses, Bill.
Yeah, I know.
You'd be good at that.
I'll do that.
You should do that sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go out and paint, and I'll draw the horses too.
You can draw the horses, and I'll draw the turkeys.
You
Yeah,
can draw
okay.
them onto Chris's paper, and then he can paint it.
Yeah.
Then we eat them. But we
Oh,
don't eat the horse.
yeah, he was a good bird. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this leads me into the next 2 questions, and that is drawing important in plein air for watercolor? And do you do thumbnail sketches prior to your painting? So Chris, why don't you take this away?
Okay, yeah, drawing's important, as I said before. Sometimes I'll do thumbnail sketches. Generally, I don't because I want to get at the painting. Like the light's going to change very, very quickly. And pre-planning and all that stuff, when you have changing shadows and such, can be annoying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Annoying, that's not the right word.
Well, it is.
I just like to paint fast and I do it for a reason, to capture the essence, the spontaneity of the particular scene. And so to work directly with a very light sketch. And in my head, I'm working out placements. Now, when it works well, it's really, really good. When it doesn't work so well, it's really, really bad. Got a good friend of mine down in Liverpool. His name's Roger Savage, and he paints. He doesn't even draw. He just starts painting.
Wow.
And when he brings it off, it's really, really good. And when he doesn't, it's kind of a bad design. So, yeah, that answers your question. So sometimes I'll do a sketch if I'm trying to work something out and I got time to do it, but generally not. Yeah, generally not. Just go right at it.
Poppy, do you have anything to add? I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Chris? I didn't mean to.
It's all right. Shouldn't cut me off anytime.
I'm sorry.
I don't apologize, no. Let Poppy have her turn.
Okay.
I don't have that much to add. Yeah, sometimes it's time dependent. I mean, sometimes if, in front of a scene and there's this fantastic boat that just pulled into the harbor and it's like, oh, I want to paint that. ask the captain, how long are you here for? And he says, oh, I'm here until 11 o'clock, and it's already 8 minutes to 10. It's like, oh, there's no room, no time for thumbnails or anything like that. So if there's time and I'm disciplined that day, I will do some thumbnails, because often I find that it's not the first iteration of a scene that's the most interesting. Sometimes it's when I take the time to stop and think about, well, do I really want to put this in the middle of it? Or what if I just like turned and focused on that instead? And the thumbnails help, but it takes discipline, and it takes hauling back on that urge to, let's get painting right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Bill, do you have anything to add to this?
I'm gonna say same with Chris. I think that having done it and done it, you develop a skill of doing a lot of the planning in your head. And so therefore I'm not it's not that I'm not going through possible arrangements or views or whatever. It's just that I'm doing them mentally more than I am physically. And sometimes I will make a quick sketch if there's something complicated. And I usually end up picking stuff that's complicated, but
yes, you do, Bill, you do.
yeah, I like to be challenged that way. But it's but I'd say I'm like Chris. I want to get the light before it changes, and I want to get it down. I have my idea in my head, and I'll just go from there.
Good. You guys are really good with answering these questions. The next,
We rehearsed them.
I know.
Yeah,
do,
right.
Do you have certain techniques that lend themselves to varying passages throughout the painting? Poppy.
Oh boy, various techniques. I don't really go much for some of the more I won't say trendy techniques, but there's you can go on YouTube and find people who paint with like saran wrap and salt and spraying it with rubbing alcohol and all these neat tricks that do really cool stuff. But that's all more stuff to carry when you're out trying to get to a certain spot. So the less I have to carry, the better. And really, I tend to paint fairly directly. The most technique, I guess, oriented thing I do is I try and work on the whole paper at once. So I'll start with a light wash and cover everything that's not going to be white. And the color can be quite light, so I'm getting my light tones in right away. And then I'll go over that with, mid-tones and darks, just about like everybody does. But I try and get as much of the whole paper wet as I can at the beginning. And the only other really technique-driven thing is to use a dry brush for sparkle on water. That's the only really, technical skill I have, really, I think.
Okay. Chris, do you have any little secret techniques?
Secrets. Okay, secrets. Sparkle on the water. I do that too, with sparkle on the water. With the dry brush. No, you got that from me. Or Bill. Yeah.
Both of us, I think.
Yeah, sparkle on the water. Yeah, there's certain techniques that lend themselves to the subject matter. Like if I got a soft edge, and it's more like a soft edge, I might use some wet on wet. I kind of paint in sections. I move around, but the reason I paint in sections outside is like for drying. Okay, so I might paint a sky, and I usually start from lights to darks, but not necessarily. It depends on how things are moving along. But I might start with a sky that's wet on wet, and then while that's drying, I'll move down and I'll try to nail the value of something in the foreground or middle distance. And then the sky is hopefully dry, and then you might want to put in your middle distance, whatever it is. But I use the technique, and I also use the brush to fill the space. I'm one with this philosophy. If you can say it in one stroke, why use 10? So you'll see me using like a number 12 or 30 brush for a lot of areas of this painting. And I think Bill and Poppy would kind of agree with that. Detail comes last. It's with watercolor, and the way I work at it is anyways, with any kind of painting, you start from the big elements and work your way down to the small elements, and every step in between should look kind of finished. Like you could stop there and where you go, you know. And I guess I'm gonna, like, I'm working outdoors fast. I'll lay in the shadows pretty quick too, especially on buildings and things, because they've changed so much. And then if you hang around, fart around, and then you go back to it, you don't know where it is, and then you screw up the light. I've seen this a lot where there's no light in the painting because it just, as the day changes and the shadow changes, they're doing that all the way along. So in the end, yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Bill.
Well, I guess I have to go to this.
Classified warning.
Classified. I've got to go in here and see what I have.
And once he tells you, he has to kill you.
I'm with Chris. I move around the painting a lot, and I'm one that, in fact, I teach that in my classes, that if you stopped at any point in time, it could resemble a finished painting for some people, because some people do things in a very rough way and they stop when at a block in, whereas others keep going and going until they have the eyelashes in. Well, I'm somewhere in between that. And so I will, I don't really have any real, I'm more of a direct painter too. I just really, I like the look of direct painting, and I try to paint with as few strokes as possible. And I try to make them look like they were meant to be there, as opposed to being nervous and fidgety.
Now, what was that thing John Singer Sargent said about facility, Bill?
Economy of stroke or something.
Yeah, it's harder than it looks, or
Yeah.
And it is, it is, because you just don't slap paint around. You put it on with a purpose.
That's
You're
right.
looking for a shape.
Yep.
You got to be accurate with it, especially if you're doing like buildings or horses or cows or even trees. Yeah.
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 And people, the viewers know it, right, Chris? The viewers aren't painters, but they know when something looks wrong.
Yeah.
They just know it instinctively because they had a lifetime of looking. And if you put it down with authority, I find you can convince the viewer that is right. And not that I'm going to put it down. I'm going to put it down as close as I can. But what I mean is, if it's close and it's believable, then I've nailed it.
Yeah, it reads well. Yeah.
I really like what Chris said when he said, use the brush that fills the space. And I thought that was a really lovely little takeaway. So thank you for that, Chris. Now I'd like to talk about—
Won't cost you a thing, Jean.
I know, the things that you get for free. It's amazing. I'm going to have to say, Chris Gorey said, let me write this down. Chris.
Yeah.
Gorey.
Yeah. If you can say it in one stroke, why use 10? That's the line,
Yeah, it's good. I wonder, that kind of leads itself to the next question, which is, do you have a certain size of paper that you like to work with when you're plein air painting? I would imagine that a full sheet might be more difficult than a quarter sheet, for example. So Chris, why don't you speak to that?
Well, that's good. Like when I was young and stupid, I used to paint full sheets outside. Yeah. But
so are you still painting full sheets?
No, Jean, no. My brain got smaller. And let's see. No, when I was younger, but I would go in sessions, be like Claude Monet. I'd go out and paint from 10 to 12 on this one thing, and that was my kind of Wyeth period. Lots of detail, lots of brown. Now I use generally don't go beyond a quarter sheet. Just technically, it's just hard to fill up that much paper. I've done half sheets outside with some success, but quarter sheets, 8 sheets now. And you can get down what you need to quickly and just make your statement and get everything you need done without too much, hassle with light changing and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So yeah, I use small stuff now. No full sheets outside. No.
Yeah. So Chris, do you use some of these sketches for larger pieces in the studio?
Um, uh, yeah. Sometimes I'll use them in conjunction with digital photography. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think when you work outdoors, and I've been like Bill would, Poppy would agree with me, you learn a lot about color. Like when you're using photography, the shadows go like dark and black become holes where there's a lot more light in a shade area, and you get that from painting out of doors, and you recognize that when you are using photography, and it's an interpretation of the photography. I mean, I used to use prints. Now I just take my digital camera, stick it on a thumb drive, and throw it in the TV. Look at the TV, you know, and interpret that. Go from there. But the sketches outdoors, yeah, sometimes, not too often. You know.
Good. Sorry, my dogs are barking, so I'll try to ask the questions and then mute myself. Bill, do you have a favorite size for painting out?
I've painted like Chris, I painted full sheets outside. Not too many. It's just difficult to control that much paper and with the elements, and it's just drying way too fast. So my probably favorite size is probably a quarter sheet. I've done some half sheets, pretty good half sheets outside, but I have to have really quite favorable conditions to do them because of drawing and stuff like that. But um, if I can do a quarter sheet or an eighth sheet, I'm happy. I just like bigger stuff. Like when I do figures, I do like 18, 22, 22, 30. I don't like full sheet because I just like to draw big and that. But for landscapes, that's not the case. So it's not that I wouldn't like to do some big stuff. It's just that to me it's not practical because it's going to dry too fast. And I'm just going to a big painting with a great design that has really lousy washes and draw edges in it. It's not going to work anyway.
Mhm. And do you use your small pieces as information for larger pieces in the studio?
I'd say I use them more for the color and
Yeah.
the light. That's about it. I don't copy them into big things. No, never.
Okay.
I've already said it. I'm bored to hell to take that same thing and do it again.
Mm.
I can't do that.
Okay, cool.
I just find that's the most boring thing. Maybe that's why I don't do thumbnails because I'm kind of like I want to get it. I have something to say, and once I've said it, I don't want to say it again. But I will use them for the light. I see the value in them. Sort of say, well, when I was painting this one, I had a light similar to that, so I'll dig it out and have a look at how I handled it. And then I'm doing a studio piece like Chris from digital or something. I understand how, because you paint outside, what the shadows are black, the skies are white, and they're not. So all those little subtleties, you know where to put them. And then when you look at your plein air sketches, you got them in there. You see how you did them before. And so that's how I would do it. Yeah.
Cool. And Poppy, do you have a favorite size?
It's changed. When I was starting, years ago, eighth sheet was about as much as I could handle outside as I was learning how to handle the paint, how to handle the elements, all that stuff. Eighth sheet was as big as I could do and be competent, but that's changed. And now I feel like eighth sheet is too small and I'm very comfortable in a quarter sheet, and I'm becoming comfortable with, I figured out how to do a half sheet, though it does take good conditions. You can't set up and paint, usually can't set up and paint a half sheet in a very quick period of time. It just takes longer to get the amount of paint mixed up to cover the large area to do those big washes. And so I find that the quarter sheet seems to be the most comfortable right now. But I'd like to do more larger ones just because I get tired of painting little parts of the landscape and have them be so small. I feel like I'd just be freer if I could paint them bigger. I don't know if that makes makes sense.
And
However,
do you ever take some of your sketches from plein air and make them larger in your studio?
I do. I don't do an exact reproduction. Usually when I do that, I've painted something on location and really enjoyed the scene, and I look at my sketch and feel like I didn't nail it with the sketch. I didn't get what I wanted to say with the sketch. So I'm going to try again in the studio, usually larger, just so that I get more of a more chance to expand on the scene and to get those elements that I didn't get in the smaller one. They don't always work. Sometimes I look at the plein air one and think, you know, I should have just stuck with that, because that's got more of the freshness and immediacy that a plein air piece does. And then other times it does work. So
Cool. Now I know, having done a small amount of plein air painting, it can be kind of uncomfortable sometimes. So do you have special, a special chair, a special coat or hat or umbrella or something that you use to make yourself a little more comfortable when you're outside? Poppy.
sure. I bought good boots and they made all the difference. I had a pair of just regular, buy at a regular shoe store, winter boots. And my feet would get so cold and I'd be done painting in half an hour, 45 minutes in the winter. Then I went to Canadian Tire and I bought a pair of boots, and the heel is this thick. It's sorry, I've got got a moment going on there. So the heel is like this thick. So it's that much rubber between me and the elements. So that stops the transfer of the cold into my feet, and I can paint for 2 hours now outside in the winter. But I do have a down coat on too. I've got a down arena jacket, so it goes down below my knees. So I'm really well insulated when I'm outside. So that makes all the difference. The boots are the most important thing though, because if your feet are cold, forget it. You might as well go in.
You also get 2 inches on your height, so you get a different perspective.
And that really matters when you're. Yes, good.
Especially when you're 6'2", like Poppy, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay, Bill, do you have any accoutrements to make your time outside more comfortable?
Well, dress warmly. Yeah, I would echo Poppy there. Good boots or shoes is essential. I can't paint wet feet. I always stand when I'm painting. I cannot sit down and paint. So I don't have a chair. I have on occasion been forced to sit down, but I just find it inhibits me. So I'm much more likely to get a better paint if I'm standing. And so if you're standing, I like an easel that's at the right height. Set at the right height with a tray so that I'm not bending over. Getting a strain, I painted in I think it was Dominican Republic one time. We were on vacation, and I'm always painting, so on vacation. So, but I was under one of those grass huts, and in order to paint, I had to sit down on like a picnic table. So I had to bend over, and I painted the scene that was out there. I got a pretty good painting, but I also got a sore, stiff neck that lasted about a week after I got home because I was so uncomfortable and didn't realize it, So I'd say get comfortable, have everything in the right place, and shade. I'll go for shade. I'll go for, if I see a scene that's good, if I look around, I walk around and that's the best view, I'll stay there and put up with it. But let's say it was hot or sunny. But if there's a shady spot nearby, I'll go in the shady spot and just have a look and see, well, what's the view from here? Because oftentimes it's still pretty good. And so I'll go to the shade.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Chris, do you have any special supplies to make you more comfortable?
Well, like Bill, I paint standing. I feel I have more flexibility. Like I don't really, I hold my brushes way back, and not like a pencil. So you have, yeah, just more flexibility, and you're using your whole arm to paint with. I have made a little box that sort of like a Zoltan Zabo easel, only half the size, so it contains all of my materials, and the drawers slide out, and I throw all my brushes and stuff on there. So I have everything right in front of me. And like Bill, I tried for like an ideal height, slant my paper a little bit. I like to work in the shade if I can, but if not, I will just go out in the bright sun and blind my eyes out on the white paper, squint a lot. Some people use an umbrella and stuff like that, but that just to me gets like wasting too much time setting all that crap up, So just open up the paint box and go.
Right.
And yeah, dress warm, bring lots of bug juice if you need it. Bill, you should tell them about your story in St. Anne's, painting down Monroe Point at the rocks there. You don't remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I went down and
he was comfortable then.
Yeah, and I went around the corner and painted this cliff. And when I went to go back, was that when the tide came in, you mean?
And the mosquitoes, the bitch right at your ankle.
Oh, that was the other one.
Black flies.
That one. The tide came in. I had to take my shoes off, wade up to about close to my waist to get out of there. But I took a group from when Gene was there at the 2009, I think it was symposium in St. Anne's, and I took a bunch, and one of them was Annette Wickman, Edmonton, and she has that art supply shop, I think it is, and so I took them down to Monroe Point, and there's rocks in the bay there, and did my demo. Like, the bugs never bothered me, but Jesus, I think we had to get Annette Wickman to the hospital to get some an EpiPen or something. She was blown right up, and so we nicknamed the group the Bug Bite Gang. That's the one you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember that.
So bring your fly dope.
Yeah.
And don't take your students to places that are going to be eaten alive, even if you're not.
You never know though. Yeah, her poor ankles were just covered with bug bites.
Oh, they were. Yeah.
It was bad. Yeah, it was bad. All right. So I think we've covered that, but what I got from you is wear warm boots and sit in the shade and make. Oh, I wanted to ask Chris, did you make the easel that you have?
I did. Do you want me to show it to you?
Yeah, I'd love to.
I can go get it. Just give me a second. Yeah, it works good.
Okay.
I like it. It's homemade.
Yeah, why don't, if it's not too far,
it's just in the other room.
Okay, I'll ask Poppy a question while you're doing that then. Poppy, what plein air painters do you admire?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I'm very fortunate to have some very good mentors, two of which are on this call.
Besides Bill and Chris.
Oh, shoot. Before I answer that, I'm going to go back to the previous question. One other piece of equipment that's very handy is if you go to like Cabela's or a fishing supply store and buy a fishing shirt, some of them have impregnated, like they're soaked in bug juice. So they have the bug juice in them, and some of them have an SPF of up to 50. So that's a really neat investment to have as a shirt that protects you. So other plein air painters that I admire, to stick with watercolor for a moment, Keiko Tanabe is a painter in San Diego, and her work is beautiful. So her work is a source of inspiration. I look at, she makes the paintings look so easy, and I don't know how she does that. I can't do that. So I look at her stuff to try and figure it out. Yeah.
And she's a lovely person too.
She is, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's great. If you ever have an opportunity to take a class from her, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, she's
okay,
lovely.
Chris, you've got that.
I got my box here. Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
So it's got like a tripod, camera tripod. I drilled a hole in. So this fits a quarter sheet. So it flips up like this. And then it's got things on the side here.
Oh, wow.
See that?
Yeah.
Pulls out like that. So my palette's on this side, right?
Uh,
And then it has compartments for all my brushes and all my paints. Can you all see that?
yeah. Yeah.
Clamps. And the bottom allows me to put my paper and pour it in. So it holds everything. And then I just set it up as quick as that. And so I'm painting like this, standing up about this height. Yeah. So it works pretty good. And the drawers slide in and out. Put it back together, and then it's got a handle for carrying, and then the tripod comes off the bottom. But it fits a quarter sheet. The other one I had was designed for a half sheet box, and it weighed way too much. This is very lightweight. And like I said, I generally use quarter sheet or less, so works good.
Good. Are you taking orders for those?
No, that took me a long time to do that. Yeah.
$1,000 each, right, Chris?
Yeah, I'll do it for $1,000 each. Yeah. Let's HST. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's getting expensive. I remember Chuck Burns came out to Alberta for one of the watercolor symposiums, probably 20, 25 years ago. I can't remember how long ago, but he had Zoltan Szabo's
Oh yeah,
box.
yeah.
And so he gets, I had never seen it before. And so he gets this thing out of the car, and it's enormous. Like it's enormous. And we're going to go on a little hike around the falls somewhere. And he's carrying it. Oh, it's no problem. It's okay. And I said, are you sure that you want to take this? It's pretty big. And he gets slower and slower. And finally says, I think this is a good spot. I think he couldn't carry it any further, but when he set it up, it was really terrific. He had everything.
Yeah.
It was like having your own personal office there for your watercolors.
That's right. It was for half sheets. And what happened is, like, as older I got, I couldn't lift the one I had because a friend made it. He made it all out of hardwood. And you're right. If you're hiking in the woods somewhere, like you're all in before you set up, you know. So I made this one, and I burnt the other one, but the other one was good for like 40 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Was the guy from Neil's Harbor, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. A fisherman from Neil's Harbor. Yeah. Barry Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it was functional. It's just, I didn't take it far from the car. Oh.
No.
Yeah.
I watched you sweat with that one many times. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you had the lightweight easel and stuff, you know. Yeah, you guys with the high tech stuff, you know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I did get rid of it though.
Yeah,
that's good. Okay, Bill, do you have any plein air painters that you admire?
Well, I would say that historically, I admire Sargent as maybe more than the rest because of his facility with watercolor. And just a couple of painters that Homer. There's
how about some living ones?
Some living ones. Now, there's people here on the panel that are pretty good plein air painters that I admire. But yeah, I took a workshop from a guy named Bill Versack from Pittsburgh, and he's a good painter. I did that in the 90s. I took a workshop with him down in Maine, and Carlton Plummer too. He's another one. But I learned something from each one of them. But Bill Versack was like a shape painter, and he simplified everything down into a few big shapes. And I think that really helped me. And I just really like his design, or just like his freshness. And one thing he did that I found interesting, I've done it a few times for demos and that, is he took a he actually took a full sheet of paper. He drew about an 18 by 24 rectangle in the middle of it, left about 2 inches all the way around. And while he was painting, that 2-inch strip was where he tested his color.
Mm.
So when you look at, if you looked them up, you'd see a lot of his paintings are 18 by 24. And that's why. But it was really a good way for him to efficiently test stuff and values and colors and things without having to pull out another piece of paper, or, it was right there in front of him. Now, he did sit down and paint, which I'm surprised at, but very good at it, so, yeah. And there's Ogden Pleisner's another guy I really like.
Yeah, him and Sessions, James Sessions. Did you ever see his work?
Yes.
Yeah, nice stuff. Yeah.
And the British guy, Siago.
Yeah.
Sago.
Yeah.
Simplified. Really, really good. Really good. Yeah. There's probably a ton of other ones that I like, but I like Zabukovich, but Joseph Zabukovich, but I found that he has too many clones out there. That I don't think that's going to be really good for him in the end, because there's so many people that paint exactly like them that if you saw their paintings, your first question is it a Zabukovich? Maybe because his paintings are technique driven, but he's a real good designer and he paints stuff that I like, racehorses. But he's a very good painter. Then you have people that imitate him that they're not quite as good, So I'd say that's more than enough, right?
Yeah. Chris, have you any others to add to that?
To add to that, well, yeah, I like Sargent. I like Homer. I think Sargent had better color than Homer did.
Yeah.
Both pretty good with the watercolor. I like some of the British stuff that's, kind of highly rendered and washed on top of wash, but some of the guys kept it pretty clean. Don Stone was another guy from Maine. He just passed away. He was earlier watercolor. He got into oil later in his life and more color. And then Wyeth. Yeah, Wyeth, kind of like what Bill said, there was a lot of Wyeth imitators around, myself included. And but very good with a medium, very good designer, very good with darks and lights and shapes and that kind of thing. And they're all dead, I guess. So we're still living, I guess. Yeah.
Watercolor.
I'm sure there's others out there.
Watercolor can be deadly, right?
Yeah, it kills people.
Yeah, you don't want to lick your brushes.
With cadmiums, no, or manganese and stuff like that. I don't use cadmiums anymore, Gene. No, too opaque for me.
Yeah, true.
Cool. Well, you guys have been so good with answering all these questions. And now I see at the side that we have quite a few comments from everybody that's participating. So the first thing is, are all of these panelists from the Maritimes? And yes, they are.
Yeah.
They are, and they're very, very good plein air painters. I think that all of you have been in different plein air competitions and events. Isn't that right?
I think Bill more than anybody. Poppy's been in quite a few too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill takes the cake, that's for sure. He's always, well, until this year, he's always going.
That's right. Yeah. Now he's online, Poppy.
I know. Good for him.
Well, I started with the Carmel Art Festival in 2000. I went to Carmel, actually. I went to California on aeroplane points because it was as far as you could go for 25,000 points. So I said, let's go to California. So I wanted to do that drive. So we did. And we ended up in Carmel and Monterey. And I saw this park, Point Lobos, state park. That should be a pretty good place to paint. So I went in there and I didn't know it, but that's the most painted park in California is that park. And so I met people like Brian Blood there and a couple of other really good painters that were painting, and they said, well, you should come down and do the plein air festival. And I said, what's that? And they said, I know what plein air is, but you mean to have a festival for that? And he said, oh yeah. So that got me started. And I didn't go do it right away. I did it a couple of years later, but I started it and kind of got hooked on it, and kept doing them actually. So
Yeah, they're pretty popular right now. And in fact, I think there was a plein air event that was online just recently through Streamlined Publications. And I think they had instructors and they would have a camera set up so that everybody could see whatever the view was and everybody would paint that view. But because of COVID, everybody was doing this on Zoom, and I guess it was quite successful. So there's we're being very innovative right now with how we can paint and how we can do plein air painting. So somebody has asked, Monique has asked, don't the watercolors freeze in the winter? So how do you guys handle that?
there's Poppy's answer.
Okay, Poppy.
That's Poppy's question.
That's my question. Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
The boots, right?
What's that?
It's the boots, right?
The boats?
The boots.
Boots, yes, the boots. That's right. I keep the paint in my boots. Yeah, no. If it's above probably minus, now I'm talking Celsius here, but if it's above -5, no problem to go paint. It's better if I can set up somewhere where there's sunshine on me and the palette, because that actually does make a difference in how fast it will freeze. If it's below -5, it doesn't matter. You can put vodka in your water. The paint's going to freeze when it gets on the paper. So
You drink the vodka.
I don't drink the vodka. I don't like vodka. And second, it's not safe.
Try the whiskey.
No, that's got stuff in it that's not archival.
You got a nice color.
True, yes. Yeah, but
Good for late in the afternoon.
yeah. It's not safe to be drinking in the cold, especially if you're out in the woods.
That's right, hypothermia.
Hypothermia is a risk. The more you drink, the more you open up your peripheral blood system, and you're more likely to get cold quickly, and that's not good. So if it's between 0 and -5, I will put. I have a little squeeze bottle with vodka for painting purposes in my easel in the winter, and I'll put a few drops of that into my puddles in my palette, and I'll put some in my rinse water. But once it gets below about -5, your rinse water can be half vodka, and you take your mixture, you put it on the board, and it doesn't dry, it freezes. So then when you're trying to paint on top of it, you're painting on top of ice, and you're in a real mess, especially if you take it inside and it thaws. Because then you're back to multiple washes all at once. So it's just, yeah. So if it's below -5, I paint in oils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. And we have Tricia Kidd is from Australia, Melbourne, and she's saying, hello from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for this meeting. It's so nice.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Australia. That's awesome.
G'day.
Yeah. Hey.
Oh.
Mate.
That's Canadian. Yeah, we put the A in there. Okay, can you tell us about what equipment you take outside? So we touched on this a bit, but you take an easel, and what else?
Well, I'll jump in. I take as little as possible, because the more I have to carry, the tireder I will be when I get to the painting location. So I do have a commercial plein air easel. There's lots of good ones. You can do a Google search and find people who've reviewed one against the other. And it's really an individual choice, how much weight you want to carry, how sturdy you want it to be, how tall you are. These are all things that sort of factor into it. So I can't make a recommendation about an easel, but get one that will hold your paper at a variety of angles. Get one that you can hook a weight to so it won't blow over. Take as few colors as you can get away with, because the more tubes of paint you have to carry, number one, the more weight, and number two, the more time you spend figuring out what color you're going to use. If you've only got 2 blues, a red, and a yellow, you don't have a lot of choices, and that makes the painting go a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
Bill?
Good. Anyone have anything else to add to that?
Well, I would fill up my palette rather than carry tubes of paint. Fill up my palette and maybe take a couple of tubes of paint that I would know I might need to recharge the wells with, but I won't take a box full of paint. I have a little folding aluminum easel that weighs less than 5 pounds. And I've got a tray that somebody made for me, homemade like Chris's. And I screw that to, or it's by friction, to the tripod. and it's big enough to hold my palette, and there's a hole in it, put a cup in. And so if I take, and my paper, I'm like Poppy, I take the least I can take. So I'll take a folder with, I won't take a big portfolio case, only if I have my car. So I'll just put it in a little, sometimes I'll just put it in a little folder. And I have a styrofoam kind of styrofoam. Yeah. And 3-ply, and I can use push pins in it and paint any particular size I want, include little tiny ones. And so that's light. So it's all to do with light. So I think we're in agreement on that. Just don't die out there.
Yeah, I hope not. Along with that, Susan asks, is there a difference in the equipment that you use outside versus inside? Chris, could you answer that question? Brushes, easels? We've kind of touched on the easel thing.
Yeah, no, I just bring the easel inside. Nope, I use the exact same thing inside as outside. And like most of these guys, I use kind of a hot palette, primary palette, but I throw in a couple of greens. Warm blue, cool blue, warm red, warm, cool red, warm yellow, cool yellow, phthalo green, sap green. That's all I use. Don't use browns. Mix everything else. It's red, yellow, and blue, right, Bill? Right, Poppy? It's all about red, yellow, and blue. Learned that in grade school.
Got it today.
Yeah, and you saw my easel, so that's what I use.
Yeah, okay. Diane asks, she says she hasn't painted outside yet, that she's a beginner, and wondering if you start some of these outside and then finish them inside with photos or sketches. Does anyone do that?
Me?
Yeah, anybody. Does anyone
We
start
skip.
and finish inside?
I haven't had very much luck doing that because I found that I've brought them inside with intentions of finishing them. If I have a photo, there's a possibility. But I've lost the light, and sometimes I've just lost the inspiration to finish them. So I don't look at them. I don't look at them as wasted time outside, though. If I can get one finished, I'm going to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but if even the ones that go astray, and then I'm flipping over and painting on the other side, they're learning tools. You got to pay your dues. You got to make the mistakes and paint your acre of paper, and so that your mistakes become less and less, and your efforts become more fruitful. And but I never look at any effort as being bad. And but I would say if you're someone who can't quite finish outside, I would take a good photograph and memorize what you can see before you leave, rather than just relying on the photograph. Really look and study the scene and see what you wanted to say about it. Then there's a chance that you could pull it off in the studio.
Great, thank you very much. And somebody asked about the paper texture, and what Chris had said was rough paper was used originally for hot weather because it retains the moisture better, and he uses more hot press papers in the winter. So you could give that a try and see how it works. Did I get that right, Chris?
Yeah, hot press is like painting on glass. Yeah, it does dry a little faster, but if you're in damp weather, it gets soggy, but it dries faster than, say, rough on damp, gray, foggy days. Or yeah, it's a different texture though. It's almost a little bit of a different technique, wouldn't you say, you guys?
Yeah, like Bristol board, right?
Yeah, it's like the paint slides across the surface and like a skating rink. So sometimes
on top.
What? Yeah, it sits on top, and so it handles differently. Yeah.
Yep.
And I found that like texture and stuff like that, you're kind of painting it on instead of using the surface of the paper as a textural device, whether it be a cold press or rough. But I've done some decent stuff with it outside, and not so decent stuff. like
Oh,
everybody. You don't
This,
see that though.
the
we don't
next
show those.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean by that one. The next question is for Poppy from Mary. She's wondering, you've touched on this a little bit, but how you use a value sketch. And I know you touched on that very well with the demo that you gave a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that again, or because I think I sort of went through that when I saw she'd asked that question. But
Oh, okay, okay,
it's just to evaluate the
All right.
scene, and it's
Okay.
quick and rough.
Okay. Do any, and we just answered this as well. Does anybody use a photo to finish the painting in the studio? So Bill does not. Chris and Poppy, do you ever use a photo to finish your painting in the studio?
Go ahead, Poppy.
Okay. I do use photos, but I find that when I'm painting, especially now, not so much at the beginning, but now I find I can't paint a scene unless I've been there for a while. If I'm, driving through an area and stop and take a really quick photo and keep going and don't think about the scene, I look at the photo later, I'm like, meh, I don't remember what I saw there. This isn't exciting. This isn't the place. I can't paint it. So I really find I have to be on location for a while, thinking about what I'm looking at before I can get excited to make a painting from a photograph. And I just don't, other people's photos, I can't do it. Sometimes people will ask, I've got this picture, will you paint it for me? And I can't do it. It just doesn't
resonate.
It doesn't, that's the word. Yes, it doesn't resonate in the part of my brain that gets excited about making paintings. Now, when I get to a scene and I'm painting on location, I try really hard to remember to take a picture when I get there, and then take a picture a couple of times as I'm there over the course of the painting, because the light's going to change, the scene's going to change. And so I try and remember to take some pictures just in case I don't get a chance to finish it. And, then I'll have the picture to refer to. But I find if I get home with an unfinished plein air piece, I really enjoy the painting process better if I don't really look at the photo and try and finish it from memory. I find that goes better. But bring out the photo, I get in the realm of trying to make it too perfect, and then it just gets stiff, and I end up thinking I should have just left it alone.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chris,
Yeah,
do you have something to add to
can
that?
I add to that? Yeah, I think I agree with Bill that once you're out there and it's the process that's important, and just the energy and the effort putting in that when it's done in location, if you bring it off, the spontaneity is something you never can achieve in the studio. Do you guys agree? No, they don't. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I think Bill and I will agree with this. Painting is not relaxing.
Right.
When you're on location, your brain is analyzing. This is the difficulty of all painting, whether it be oil or watercolor, is that it's like a juggling act. You're like a magician. You got to know how to draw. You got to know how to design. You got to know how to mix color. You got to know how to apply paint. What's going to happen if you do this? What's going to happen if you do that? And you got all these balls in the air. And the exciting thing is, if you bring it off, it's cool. It's quite a trip. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't really bring stuff inside to finish. I might do a few touch-ups. I will take a photograph, but no, once it's done outside, it's done. It's either good, bad, or ugly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had someone just on that same thing say to me when I was painting outside, "Oh, that must be so relaxing."
Yeah, right.
And I said, "No, it isn't." And I said, if I relax and painted this painting, what I'm going to get is a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that answer, they left because I think they were looking for me to say I was so happy doing it. I said there's a difference between liking doing it and being relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think if you are relaxed, you're going to get crap. It's like it takes a lot of energy, and that's what is
Concentration.
expended into the painting, and to like put that energy, and it comes through in the painting if you bring it off. That vitality, that energy, that it's spontaneity with plein air painting, which what makes it really, really exciting if you do bring it off. I've done it occasionally. They all have, I guess. And then, you've done stuff that's occasionally not so good too, and probably a lot of bad ones.
Mhm. All right, so the next question is, do any of you ever use masking fluid when you're plein air painting?
No.
No.
No?
I
No.
don't use masking fluid, period.
Mhm.
I've ruined a couple of good brushes doing that, and I just won't touch it.
You didn't soap up your brush, Poppy. Did you?
No, I was just a baby painter then. I didn't know.
Yeah, but see, somebody did that at one of the symposiums or to class I taught, and one way to get rid of it is mix up a solution of TSP, and it gets rid of the latex. But you leave it in too long, it rots the hairs right out of the
Yeah,
brush.
I was gonna say, it'll get rid of your bristles too, won't it?
Yeah, no, it rots the yeah, it's got that touch thing, yeah. But yeah.
All right,
So,
next question. Oh, do you have another
I was
comment?
just gonna say, we preserve the small details with those small white details by going around them, or by scraping them out with a razor blade, or
White paint. I'm all for white paint.
Yeah,
Yes.
white paint. White paint applied with authority
Yeah,
looks like the thing
you know
I
what you're
find with,
doing.
and I find the thing with masking fluid is that it never looks like it was put on with authority. It has a weak look because it follows in the little bumps in the paper. So it never really makes a very strong line. And I find it looks weak. And then the rest of your painting strong and you got this weak spot. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd rather like Chris pile the gouache on real thick.
all right.
But make it look like it's the painting that you're doing. Don't make it look like you're covering a mistake up.
No,
Make it look
that's what I
part of the
mean.
painting.
Put it on with authority. Like
Reckless abandon, Gene.
Mm. You guys are wild.
East Coast.
Yeah, I know. Those maritime people are crazy.
and you thought this was coffee. You thought this was coffee.
It's screech. Yeah. All right, next question is, how much water do you take with you to paint? Do you take like
At least as possible.
do you hope that there's water beside you and you can just scoop it up, or do you take a water bottle full, or a liter?
8 ounces or so.
Yeah, that's about right. Depends how much water you want to use.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. I went out to paint somewhere in New Mexico, and I packed my bag the night before and thought, well, I'm going to be in, kind of desert conditions, and I'm not going to be near water, so I have to carry water to paint with, and I needed to drink water, so I put a good amount of water in my bag.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning I got up, and my bag felt awful heavy by the time I got on the road, and put my bag on my back, walked out to the site. And of course, I chose the spot that was furthest along the trail of anybody. A friend of mine that was with me, he looked at me with my bag and he said, I took it off and set it down and went clonk. And he said, boy, that sounds kind of heavy. And then he picked it up and he was like, what have you got in there? So I opened it up and started to take out the water. And in the morning, I'd forgotten that I put the water in the night before. So I had 10 pounds of water in my bag, which was a mistake. So
You didn't run out. It was the desert, Poppy.
Yes, that's right. I was not going to get dehydrated.
No.
Yeah, I could change my rinse water frequently.
There's always a positive to everything, isn't there?
Exactly.
I painted with seawater before, and I never noticed anything happen to the painting. It came out fine.
I
Yeah,
use water all the time.
yeah, I've done that. Yeah, brook water, seawater,
Yeah.
So
muddy
the
water.
salt doesn't bother it then in the water.
No,
Okay.
people use all their paintings, right?
Mhm.
So
Poppy, there is a specific question from you from Victoria. What brand are your boots?
well, I'll plug Kamek boots because these boots, I've had them for 4 years now. Now, mind you, they weigh 3.5 pounds each, so they're not light, but they have made a huge difference, and they are very warm. They still look brand new because they weigh 3.5 pounds each, so I don't walk very far. But they do a great job, and that's Kamik, K-A-M-I-K. It's a Canadian brand. And the ones that I bought, they're men's size 7, which is the smallest size they had at the Canadian Tire where I was. They don't have good women's winter boots for being outside, it seems like, or at least that store didn't. They were all flimsy. So I bought a men's pair. They're too big, so I wear an extra pair of socks, which probably helps too. And they were rated to -100 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
So
Antarctica's out of the question then, Poppy.
what's that?
Antarctica's out of the question, sorry.
That's okay.
You'll have to go with David Mcewen.
Yeah, he's been everywhere,
David
including
Mcewen,
Antarctica.
I didn't mention, he does beautiful work in extreme conditions. So yeah.
You bet.
Penguins and all.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the next question, what was the artist name from San Diego? And I believe that was Kiko Tanabe,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Met her in Ireland, actually.
Uh-huh.
Nice lady.
Yeah, she's very nice. I met her in Italy. Crazy
Okay.
places to meet people. Okay, someone else says thank you. They have to go. Thank you to all, have to go. Oh, we've already written down Edgar Seago.
Yeah.
I wrote down a bunch of these, the names of plein air artists. So there was Bill Versek, James Session, Carlton Plummer, and of course Sargent and Homer. So those were the names that
And
were
one Chris had, Don Stone, wasn't it?
okay.
Yeah, New England artist. Yeah.
Don Stone.
If
He was
you-
from Monhegan. He died a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And Ogden Fleischner's another.
Ogden Pleisner, yeah, very good
We both like him, yeah.
sporting artist. Yeah,
Yeah. He painted the Mirror Machine in New Brunswick, eh? The
Yeah.
salmon fishing up there.
Yeah,
He also
dead.
painted Bermuda, and he painted the street where I go all the time. Shinbone Alley.
yeah. He's dead too.
Yeah.
Mary says this is like a kitchen party. So is this like we need a Kaylee? We have to get some music in the background.
We just had Celtic Colors here last week, virtual.
Oh, wow.
Virtual, yeah.
Yeah, if you watched it, my daughter was doing tours on there every night, Yvette's road trip. And
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to come out for it when this COVID thing goes away.
Yeah, well, just invite me and I'll be there. You don't have to
Now
ask.
you got a place to stay, Gene. You know that.
Thank you.
Bill would probably
I
put
got
you
a
up
spare
too.
room too.
Yeah, Bill's got a
Okay.
spare room. Poppy's got a spare room too. Kicks the kids out of their bedroom. So
Doug could stay in one place and I'll stay.
Yeah. It's hard to get the ducks out of there though.
Yeah. Too funny. Okay, let's see who else has said something. Tricia said she learned a lot. Thank you very much. The Antarctic painter, that would be David Mcewen.
McCowan, yeah.
McEwen. He lives part-time in Vancouver and then also has a place in Toronto. His wife is a photographer and her name is Daisy Gardia. She's a very well-known photographer. She's a National Geographic photographer. So they're quite a pair. They go out on all these wonderful adventures. So you can look them up. And what else do we have? Also from Melbourne, Australia. Wow, I'm so pleased that we had a few people from Australia here. That was very, very nice. Does anyone else?
Robert Wade is pretty good.
Right, yeah. Anyone else have any questions that's here right now? Oh, this is a long one. Does your painting mindset or style change when plein air painting? I guess what the question is your style different when you paint outside versus inside? I think that's where
No, it says with others.
Oh, with others, okay.
It's sort of like, does it change when you're alone or when you're with other people? I
Okay.
think that's the sense of it.
I guess, are you fluid with your painting style? Anybody?
I'd say so. Yeah. Paint the same way.
Paint the
Yeah.
same way?
Got too big an ego. Try something.
Plus, I haven't got time to be thinking about anybody else around.
Yeah, he's selfish.
I got to get my painting done.
This is true. Yeah. Chat in the evening, Gene.
Yeah,
in the
we chat on breaks
evening. Yeah.
Sounds good. All
at
right.
lunch.
Yeah. All right. So I think that it looks like we've had all the questions that everybody wants to ask you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to what you professionals have to say about plein air painting. Please, everybody, stay tuned for some more educational programming that we're going to have in the new year. And I thank you very much for coming and being a part of this. So thank
Hi,
you.
Linda. Linda Kemp there.
Linda's there. Hey, Linda.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's great.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
We'll
Thank
have
you
to.
in advance for next week, Linda. Linda's going to be doing a demo for us next Thursday at the same time. Hers is sold out, but we are going to be sending out replays of all these events, including this one, after the event. And they're going to be up on the CSPWC YouTube site. Bill's is up there now. Mine's going to be up there soon. So if you've missed, if you missed a detail, if there was something you didn't hear and you want to go back and find it, you'll find it in the replay. So they'll be up for about a month at least after filming. So sorry, Jean, I took over for a minute.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I will also say that our International Open Water exhibition is online this year due to COVID, and it is a strong show. We will have an online gallery that will be up November 1st. So please come and have a look at our exhibition. It's a very, very strong show this year.